It's now week 7 across the NFL landscape. Tariq Cohen's still out with an injury because Matt Nagy never has any updates. So when we're on this show over the summer, on this YouTube channel over the summer, and we talked about how the Bears have pretty much mishandled every single injury from Tevin Jenkins to Tariq Cohen, and people called us out for it on social media. You're seeing it all come to fruition now. What's up, guys? Welcome into the Fireside Bears YouTube channel. Max Smith here alongside Usayd Kosho. You can follow us on Twitter at Usayd Kosho and at Max Smith ESM. Be sure to follow Fireside Bears on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Fireside Bears. Check out our parent company, Empire Sports Media. But Max, what's going on, man? How you doing? The Bears are playing the defending Super Bowl champs for the second season in a row.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting week coming off that Packers loss. This is definitely an interesting game, kind of season potential on the line. If we lose, there's really not a good chance of us making any sort of playoff position. If we win, our season's very much still alive, and there will be a lot of people questioning whether or not we're legit contenders or not. And the answer is probably no, but there is a slim possibility that we could win this game. But we're going to break this down. Bears Bucks preview. We're going to talk about defense. We're going to talk about Bears defense. We're going to talk about injury reports. We're going to talk about offense and what we think is absolutely crucial if the Bears have any shot of winning this game. What they need to do and how they need to execute it. Because lately, the past couple of games has really just come down to execution and game plan. It's kind of been Matt Nagy's entire issue this entire time as tenure as head coach of the Chicago Bears has been inconsistency in game plan and execution. One week they come out, completely decimate a team. The next week they come out and get flat out embarrassed. So we'll see what team comes out this week as they play in Tampa Bay to see potentially Tom Brady get his revenge after last year's 4-down incident. But let's start with the offensive side of the ball. What in particular are you excited about this staunch Buccaneers defense? Do you see any opportunities for the Bears to find a weakness, find a hole? What are you thinking?
Well, it's hard to say. So, I mean, I think the big weakness right now, or the big question mark, would be that Bucks linebacking core. Okay, so Levante David's out, but he's been out for the last couple of weeks, but he's also kind of limited in practice. And so you're hoping, okay, is Levante David going to be playing? I mean, and then you look at it, the Bucks secondary has really been injured early on too. So this is a game where you look at that linebacking core. If Levante David's out, you look at that secondary where a couple guys have been injured, and make no mistake, I mean the Bucks still have one of the best safeties in the league, best young safeties in the league, and Antoine Winfield Jr., who's really a hard hitter and a tone setter, kind of what the Bears need now, next to Eddie Jackson, would be really helpful. But anyways, Cole Kmet's on this roster. Getting back on point here, I think that the Bears are going to have their fair share of opportunities in this game. When you look at the Bucks, it's interesting because everyone is so focused on the offensive side of the ball that it's like their defense feels like a complete afterthought. I mean, you look at the Tampa Bay offense, right? They're playing real well, and we'll get to the offense in a second here. But the thing is, it's like the other thing is just the defense, right? Their defense has been really good this year. They're at 5-1. They're playing at a really high level. And another thing that I want to note is that they've got playmakers all over the field, right? On every single level. You're talking from the defensive line to the linebacking core, all the way to the secondary. Add this piece of information into all this is that when the Bears played the Bucks last year, the Bucks were still in week 4 or 5, right? Thursday Night Football at Soldier Field. There were something to keep in mind is that at that point, much of the Bucks roster was still the same as it is now, nearly 54 weeks later. But the big difference, I think, is that this time, one, the Bucks are Super Bowl champs. Number two, they fully figured out what their identity really is. Because last year there was so much talk of, hey, when Tampa was in town, it was like, okay, this is a super team with positions and talent talent at every single position. Are the Bucks going to be able to even do this? And I think it's very clear. Yeah, they showed it because they went all the way to Super Bowl and won, and they beat Patrick Mahomes. But also, I mean, this is just looking like a more complete team than last year, because last year's team and core, like I said, was relatively the same. The newest member was Tom Brady, but also a lot of those guys, like a Mike Evans or like an Antonio Brown. Well, Antonio Brown wasn't on the roster last year in week 4 for the Bucks, but Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Devin White, Levante David, those were the types of players that they had never really been deep in the playoffs and ever been part of a winning team. So that was still a new thing for them. And now they've adjusted to it, which is why all of a sudden they've adjusted and Tampa's now averaging 35 points a game on offense.
Yeah, Tampa's stacked. I mean, it's still amazing that they were able to retain that much talent from a Super Bowl winning roster. Some guys made some really tough decisions. They guess they were sold on Bruce Arians' mission and vision that they were able to run it back. They have absolutely every tool necessary to run it back. The Buccaneers defense this year took a little bit of a step back, but that's primarily based on injuries. They didn't skip a single beat in terms of the run defense. It's absolutely disgusting how good they are stuffing the run. Right now, they've only let up 323 yards in rushing this entire season. We're in week 6. That's an absolutely crazy statistic to think about. And that's because of guys that are on their line, absolute monsters. One, JPP, he's probably going to be out this week. He did not practice today. We'll see what's going on. It's not a non-injury veteran rest. It's such a mouthful. But he's more than likely doubtful for this game. So that might be a good opportunity to make some of that outside zone rushing, especially like you said, with that linebacking core banged up. Looking at their IR. Sean Murphy-Bunting, he's on IR. His name is Carlton Davis. Now, like you mentioned, Antoine Winfield Jr. is back this week. He was out with a concussion for a couple of games. So that adds that element of, okay, well, how is this going to impact our pass game? Because it's definitely something you have to keep an eye on. Richard Sherman's most likely not going to play. Not that I don't think he would make that much of an impact anyways. That's not a slight on Richard Sherman as one of the greatest cornerbacks in our era of football. But it's kind of a slight on a guy that hasn't played a lot of football lately and has been more podcasting than anything else. So not doubting his talent throughout his career. Maybe right now I need to see some proof to see if he's still as good as he once was. So there are definitely holes in this defense, but the game's gonna be won through the passing game, right? There's no way that we can expect Khalil Herbert to dominate this defense because it's just not gonna happen. It literally just isn't going to happen. We barely won this game last year, and it wasn't off our offense. It was off our defense. It was able to shut down Tom Brady. If we're able to replicate that again, the only way that we're going to win this game is going to be through the air. So that's incredibly important to think about going forward. Is like, Vitea Vea, he's probably the best nose tackle in the league, but he's there with Ndamukong Suh, who somehow is still performing at an elite level. Makes zero sense to me. This guy has been around as long as I remember watching football. Ndamukong Suh is still a force to be reckoned with since he's been as good as he has been since he was with the Detroit Lions. Devin White, he's still incredibly good. Shaquille Barrett is ridiculously good. He was my Super Bowl MVP because remember, the Buccaneers wouldn't have won that Super Bowl if it wasn't for that defense, right? There's zero reason Tom Brady played well enough to win a Super Bowl that go around. It was completely off the backs of the defense. So this defense should be regarded as, when they're fully healthy, the best defense in the NFL. There's no question in my mind that there is a more talented, more cohesive, more well-schemed roster in this entire league than the Buccaneers defense. Now, when you put the injuries into it, now you're looking at holes that you can exploit. And the only team that was able to exploit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just happens to be one of the best passing teams in the NFL, the LA Rams. So Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay put their heads together and said, we're going to out-scheme this defense. And they did it, right? And look at the rest of the Buccaneers schedule. Week 1, Cowboys, Dak's first game. That was a fun game. Probably lost because of a bad call here or there. To be completely honest with you. They beat up on the Falcons. They beat up on the Patriots, and they beat up on the Dolphins. So it's not like a lot of these wins. 3 of these wins are against pretty crummy teams in the league right now. So this might be one of their real tough opportunities this season to kind of be a measuring stick of whether or not this is a Super Bowl contender. Is okay, so you lost to the Rams. Now you're playing a Bears team who isn't anything to completely write off. They can still, make you play. They'll make you sweat. But this is a really good opportunity for the Buccaneers as well as the Bears to kind of prove where we're at season-wise. So it's an exciting matchup. But let's go to the offense. What are you excited about? What do you want to talk about there? Let's just open it up for a bit.
Okay, so I'm not going to say Justin Fields because that's the obvious answer, but also let me say this. because I mentioned Justin Fields, but I was going to mention this anyway. People have to understand something is that it's just going to be another game where the Bears are going to have to pass the ball the same amount of time that they run, because it's like this really good. You mentioned a really good Bucks run defense. Yeah, they're one of the best in the NFL. They've allowed like whatever 330 yards or something and just under 3.5 yards per carry in the rush defense. But ultimately, the reason I bring Justin Fields up is because last week he was 16 for 27, one touchdown, a questionable interception. Now, the Bears are just going to have to open it up more and have him pass more for two reasons. One, he showed that he could go ahead and pass more, and he was really comfortable in doing so. Number two, the Bears can't afford to run the ball the entire time, because if they do start falling behind against a really explosive offense, what will happen is that the Bears are going to dig themselves into a hole very early, and much earlier than anyone expected. So ultimately, you look at this entire Bears offense right now. I mean, yeah, they've gotten worse every single year, but then outside of Justin Fields, what are you looking at? You're looking at Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson. Okay, I think that when we talk about what type of game plan the Bears are going to employ out there, you're going to have a lot of those intermediate to deep routes that are just going to continue to test the Bucks secondary. That's the type of passing game that you're just going to have to call, that kind of vertical passing game. There's not really any use in calling any sort of horizontal passing game for two reasons. Number one, the Bears simply suck at the horizontal passing game. And number two, if you call horizontal passing game, all you're doing is basically asking for Devin White to come tackle you on pretty much every single play. And then another thing also to keep in mind is that you're going to have to match up size with size, right? So Cole Kmet got involved a couple times down the stretch last week, was involved, I think, on the first drive too. So you're going to have to get Cole Kmet involved too in this, okay? And that means that just those routes down the seam where you're matching him up against, Devin White or even Antoine Winfield Jr., and boom, just throw him a 50-50 ball, let him use his size to make him go up and get the ball. I understand everyone has their gripes with Cole Kmet. I think a lot of people are failing to understand that what it is with Cole Kmet is that he doesn't have the breakaway speed that a lot of these other top tight ends have, like a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle, or I'll even throw Kyle Pitts in there because Kyle Pitts is phenomenally good, and he would be starting on 31 other NFL teams right now. And in a couple of years, he is going to be the face of the tight end position. But Cole Kmet doesn't have that breakaway speed. But then what he does bring is the ability to go up and grab those 50-50 balls, right? He has the size as well as the athleticism. Well, he's not overly athletic, but he's got enough athleticism to operate in space and somewhat in traffic to make something happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really key point I want to focus on is the horizontal versus the vertical passing game. The Buccaneers have 7 interceptions thus far in the season. Jamel Dean is responsible for 2 of those. So with Carlton Davis out on one side, Jamel Dean's really kind of the only guy left at that position who's going to be able to make that big play factor or really make that difference. So Justin Fields is going to be throwing against a rather banged up secondary with potential holes. Now, we saw that against the Packers, right? They were a pretty banged up secondary. Packers starting 2 cornerbacks were out. There were times where he's flashing really, really good signs, like that one drive specifically that put us back into the game before things completely fell apart. He was trying to do too much, took some sacks. The momentum was there. The confidence was there. The timing was there. Everything that you could possibly want was there. So I anticipate every day of full practice this week, they're running that again and again and again and again. Now, if you're a good team, I feel like you should be doing that, right? Let's do exactly what we did right. Let's do it enough to figure out what it is that we're doing right. I think the answer is up tempo, if we're being completely honest with you. I think less time in the pocket, more time on the line, make him feel like he's back in college, that atmosphere where it's just go, 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 right? Make your one read there. If it's not, run. Like, that's as simple bare bones as it needs to be right now for this offense for Justin, because I'm not expecting him to make the 1-2-3 progression, because first of all, it's not there. It's just literally not in this game. But I'm not expecting him to be able to read some of these defenses, especially against Todd Bowles' defense. It's going to be really, if he's able to read some of these, if we watch this game and we see a good amount of adjustments at the line, that tells you just how mentally prepared Justin Fields is and how leaps ahead he is of traditional rookies entering this league. Because if he can read some of these ridiculous cover thief, weird zone schemes, weird audibles that this defense runs at the same time, holy cow, like he's there for me. We just have to get that final intangible. So you're completely right. We're not going to win this game through Khalil Herbert. We don't want to beat the dead horse, but this game is going to be won through the passing game. And Jamal Dean's going to be smothered over Allen Robinson. This could be a huge game for Darnell Mooney because there is a lack of speed at this cornerback position to cover Darnell Mooney for the Buccaneers. If I'm Bill Lazor, I'm circling that right there, and I'm going, this is our guy. Like, Justin and Darnell, you guys need to absolutely have fun with this game, figure it out. You're going to give you some good routes, and I think Cole Kmet potentially have a good game as well. Good horizontal passing games come off the backs of guys who are able to cross, right? That's just a simple crosser. You want a big body dude or a really small, fast guy? Big body dude pulls the linebacker, fast guy sneaks in behind, in between the zone. You're good. That's how you make simple yardage. Look at Sean McVay on all 22. That's all he does. Play after play. We don't have that right now. I don't know when we'll get it, but we definitely don't have that right now. But there is potential for this team with the horizontal passing game. And I think that once we're able to kind of set that up, I think Justin's going to have an even better career because I think his talent suits with that, plays with that perfectly.
Yeah, those are some really good points you made there. And then I'm just going to add this in is that it's like, it's just one of those games where, and I hate to say it, but we're going to have to see more of a Matt Nagy type of offense because when you look at the Bill Lazor offense, I mean, it is 11, 12, 13 personnel. This is just going to be one of those games where the Bears are going to have to spread the ball out more and just spread the players out more. So that means getting Marquise Goodwin and Jameer Byrd involved. And thank you for bringing Darnell Mooney up because I brought up Goodwin and well as Jameer Byrd. Look, you're just gonna have to kind of win this game and beat this defense with your speed because this Bucks defense, like you mentioned, they have talent on all three levels, and it's really good talent that would be starting and basically be superstar caliber talent on any other roster in the league. That's how good Todd Bowles' defense is. Okay. Also, side note, you mentioned Justin making adjustments at the line. If we see him make multiple adjustments at the line, and you're right, it is just going to show how far he's progressed. I'm just going to be the jerk that links it all the way back to training camp and be like, yep, and this is why Andy Dalton should have never been starting in the first place. All right. Certainly because there's a serious case to be made for it. You also mentioned the up tempo. I think one issue right now so many people are having with Justin Fields is that, okay, he holds on to the ball too long. There's instances where he takes sacks. Justin does need to get better situationally. He does need to know when to take a sack to keep the clock running, when the Bears have the lead to protect the lead. He does need to know when to just throw the ball away if the Bears are playing from behind in order to basically stop the clock and get a free timeout. But then he also needs to know when to take off and run or just completely get rid of the football. Those are some of the things that Justin Fields needs to learn how to do. Now, the reason I bring it up is because he's not playing as fast as he would like to or as anyone would like him to be playing right now. So what are you going to be doing to counter that? You're right, you go up tempo, you continue to go no huddle, basically keep the Bucks on their feet. Keep a weak secondary on its feet to the point where you're basically making them guess and you're not giving them an opportunity to go from a nickel to a dime defense if they really need to. You're just continuing to keep them on their toes, and that's just what's going to keep them guessing. When you go back in with the Packers game, I think that that's one thing the Bears just failed to do in certain situations was realize, hey, we're playing a relatively weaker secondary. Let's keep these guys on their toes and not give them an opportunity to make any sort of changes.
Yeah, I want to say one thing on Justin, and then I'm going to go back to that Packers game. So for Justin, right, he hates the comment he made about the game not being fast enough in preseason. All I'm going to say is make it faster. If you're worried about how long he's holding on to the ball in practice, make it faster. In game, make it faster. Literally, if he said, well, I don't think the game's fast enough, and then the game turned out to be a lot faster, make it even faster. Don't give him the opportunity to slow things down. Give him the opportunity to speed it up. Let him trust his instincts more than trying to figure out, well, it was a naked cover. My eyes weren't supposed to go there. First of all, that's ridiculous to me that your offensive coordinator was telling you that your eyes aren't supposed to go to a certain part of the field, especially if the wide receiver's throwing his hand up in the air. Yeah, maybe you weren't supposed to see that because your one read's on the left side of the field. Like, I don't know. I'm not a quarterback, so I don't want to be like saying something that I have zero idea what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying when I was a tight end, when I was a tight end and I'm running a specific route, I'm running a whip route, one side of the field in the end zone. I'm wide open. I'm screaming and yelling. And I'm trying to get my quarterback to look at me. Excuse me, but like that's ridiculous to me. So I mean, when we're looking at that, it makes zero sense. Make the game faster. On towards the Packers. That was a game we could have won. Looking at the all-22, taking a second to recap that, we had every opportunity to win that game, and we didn't. We looked like a better team 75% of the plays. Aaron Rodgers, that offense didn't look that fun to watch. Rewatching that game, again, the defense was in it until the team was out of it. Zero reason we should have lost that game. We had every opportunity to win that game, and there are multiple times where we just looked like the flat-out better team. So in my mind, I feel a lot better actually watching that tape and going, I thought we played a lot worse than we did. Going back and watching, I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better. So if we're able to shut down that Packers offense, pretty good, there's a fairly good chance that we can shut down this Buccaneers offense. If we can negate the run, which is crazy, the Bucks absolutely upgraded their running game this year. If we're able to take out Cameron Brate, if we're able to take out Godwin, Antonio Brown's out. I don't think he's going to be playing this game. He didn't practice today. So that completely removes that whole speed aspect for that offense outside of Godwin. There's an argument to be made that the Bears can shut this team down if we pressure Tom Brady and if we kind of pump the brakes on the run game. Byron Leftwich, offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers, may not have a lot to play with this game.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But then also the other half of the argument is that the Bears are then going to need to match that really strong defensive performance that we're hoping that they have with production from the offensive side of the ball. Now, let me just throw this out there too. When you look at the Bears, I mean, there's always that one surprise win that they seemingly tend to get every single year. Is this the game? I don't know. Could it be against a team like the Ravens or even the Seattle Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals down the line? Yeah, but this is certainly one of those games that you look at and you're like, okay, if there's a game that the Bears are going to play spoiler, this could be it. It's just going to depend on, like you mentioned earlier in the show, hey, what group are the Bears going to trot out there? Are they going to be the team that's ready and motivated to play, or the team that's just absolutely boring? When we look at the production from the offense, I mean, it hasn't been really good. It's been mediocre. It's been average. It's been, quite frankly, inconsistent and all over the place. So you're going to need to go ahead and match that. So ultimately, for me, with this score, I mean, I think the Bears are going to lose 2 straight here. So I'm going to go with Bucks 30, Bears 17. I just think that
That's tough.
yeah, I just think that the Bucks are a well-oiled machine right now that have kind of covered up their holes more than a lot of people seemingly think. And when you look at the Bears, this is a young team at this point that's basically learning everything on the fly. They're learning basically how to play football on the fly, and it's kind of sad we're saying that going to year 4 of an offensive guru, because let's be real, I mean, the offensive system that's being run is good in terms of helping establish a run first identity, but then also when you're running the football like 70% of the time, you're not really catering to your quarterback strengths, which is consistently hitting the deep ball. And sometimes you're just running the ball so much that teams are keying in and stacking the box to the point where your passing game has absolutely nowhere to go or nothing to develop because nothing's open downfield. And then what's happening is you're just getting the defense back out there, and what you hope helps rest the defense just gasses the defense more.
Yeah. There's really nothing else to build off that. The Buccaneers are going to blitz the crud out of this offensive line. Todd Bowles loves sending. He loves loading the box. So he's going to bet. He's literally going to dare the Bears to throw the ball. And that's just going to be completely up to Justin, Matt, and Bill, and John to figure out exactly how they're going to challenge or accept that bet. I'm gonna hop along and say this is probably going to be a loss here. I'm thinking probably 14-17 to 24. I think obviously more than 14 to 17 points just isn't going to happen because we're just physically incapable of putting that many points up on the board. What I want to point to right now, though, before we head out of here, is the standings and how important this game is for the Buccaneers and how important it is for the Bears come for the rest of the season. So the Buccaneers are currently sitting on top of the South. They're 5-1. If they lose this game, they go to 5-2. Saints win this game. The Saints are right there with them at 4-2, or win their game, they're at 4-2. So they're knocking on the doorstep there. The Rams are 5-1. So there's really no margin of error for one of these teams that are 5-1, the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Cowboys, to start losing now, or else they're going to basically end up in a wild card scenario, which is what the last thing that these teams would want to do because they've been busting their chops already this early in the season. So some of these teams, one home field spot's automatically going to go to the Cardinals, but that last one, we're already starting to see which team is going to pull ahead because they're all 5-1. And if the Buccaneers take this loss, they're looking at the Saints that are nipping on their heels, and they may not even win the division if they someone knocks the wheels off the boat. So this is a big game. And then for the Bears specifically, we're 3-3 right with the Vikings. Even if we don't end up winning the division, it'd be better to be second than third, in my opinion. But if you ain't first, you're last. Some people, but regardless, this is definitely a turning point for the season, in my opinion, more so than any other game. If we win this game, we're still right in it. If we don't, might be a time to start sketching up scouting reports.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. And from the Bears' perspective, you go on NFL.com right now and you look at the standings. Hey, there is basically a three-way tie for that seventh and final playoff spot. And the Bears haven't even played the Vikings yet. Still 2 games of that coming up in November. And then I believe once again in January. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it from us. So yeah, playoff implications are on the line, as crazy as it sounds in what's now an expanded 17-game season. And there's only one bye, which means that every other team is going to be playing a wild card spot. So you can pencil the Bears in for a wild card spot if they do in fact make the playoffs. But that's going to do it from us, guys. Make sure you're following myself and Max on Twitter at Usayd Colshaw, at Max Smith ESM. Check out Fireside Bears on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Fireside Bears. We're going to be back come Monday or Tuesday, guys, with a Bears Bucks recap. Check out our weekly show too that we record on Tuesday nights and drop on Wednesday mornings around 1 a.m. Eastern time. It's available on every single podcasting platform. But bear down, guys. Peace out. Have a great rest of your week.